say that there hasn't been any major disasters, there hasn't been any major false flags, there have been no terrorist attacks, and we have, for all intents and purposes, done nothing more than go into this slow dragging down of effort. But that system has to change, and we're all very aware that that system has to change. And now it seems that now that the presidency no longer can participate in the illusion to gather evidence and to root out all of the involved members, because I can assure everybody that a proper investigation and peeling back the layers was an absolute necessity to this process. We couldn't just say, you know, it was this group of people and leave it at that. We couldn't just say that these people are causing all the problems and leave part of the cancer in society to regrow and turn things upside down once again. So a tremendous amount of effort has been done to go along with the path that the industries and companies and the individuals behind the scenes that have been controlling this system for hundreds of years are all rooted out, and that everybody can see exactly what's taken place. The true history of the world and of the United States could come out, and the truth had to be understood. Evidence had to be gathered. The proof needed to be necessary to convince everybody that these are the changes that are happening. And it has taken a substantial amount of time, a lot longer than most of us would have liked to have taken.
Okay, so in effect what you're saying is the information that you were given, that you feel you vetted, and that has proven itself to be a viable source, one that you, although at times are overwhelmed by, that the source itself has proven valid, and that when you received the information, what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
Yeah, on Wednesday,
that in fact you were taken back by this information.
Oh yes, I was not prepared. I actually had to take a step back and decide if, you know, getting on a YouTube video and not doing what they requested, but taking a step that was necessary and giving the option of doing it would be, if I could do it, quite frankly. It's one thing to get on the radio and talk about, you know, good things and positive outcomes. It's another thing entirely to stand up, put yourself in the public eye, and say things that have been previously put out as information, and to stand in the face of it all and say, we have been duped for years.
Right. And so in effect, just so that everybody's clear, and because the nature of this information is a bit overwhelming for you to even organize and figure out how to then come across accurately, Bill had asked me to be a part of this, just to ask him some questions and try to, if I could, perceive how the listeners are going to interpret what he's saying, and maybe ask some of the questions that some of the viewers right now are having. So Wednesday you received some information. Are you able to talk a little bit about how you received this, or is that something you're not comfortable?
Back in 2008, I was asked by an individual who I can't disclose the identity of or the nature of, but I was asked if I really wanted to participate in the change that needed to take place in the country or not. And I was informed that I could make a difference if I chose to, but it wasn't going to be an easy road.
Okay, so this was in '08. At the time, where were you?
I was living in Las Vegas.
Okay. And so at this time, you're not comfortable saying who this person was?
No.
Do you, in fact, know who this person was?
I know the identity of the person, but I don't know, name, rank, and serial number now.
Okay. And this person kind of threw down the gauntlet and said, look,
Exactly.
kid, you kind of have more going on than you know. I'm going to lay it out for you. Here's some of the opportunities that are at your door.
Yep.
If you're interested, you need to make some changes and be ready for things to come.
Basically, I was informed that there's a potential for me to do a great service and to live up to my oath of office and to do some great service for humanity. And after some initial reservations, I decided to take up the task. And the vetting process has been what I've been living for the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Some promises that were made to me certainly have been fulfilled. Even though the attempts have been more than outrageous to shut me up, put me in jail, and re-shrink my brain,
mm-hmm.
have been vast and obvious, and I have several examples, some of which lately you're very aware of, to get me quiet and put me in a hole again, have failed. And I was promised over a year ago, right after my arrest in Las Vegas, last April, a year ago last April, that I wouldn't ever be arrested again. And
if you were to continue kind of making amends for your conscience for having gone forward and done the job of bombing and the things that had bothered you about your career, you in fact were given an opportunity to live up to the oath that you thought you were taking.
Exactly.
Without a lot of instruction or guidance, it's been kind of...
This has been very much what most people would consider, born experience, where, my expertise and my knowledge, after years and years of what I thought was going to be, a useless effort with my military career, are now being picked up and used. And that honor and that courage and the determination that I had in the military could be used far better than it was in the military.
Okay.
And so
you get this information on Wednesday, and just to clarify, are you able to kind of, in a brief summation, lay out exactly what was said or communicated to you?
Yeah. Basically, I shortly after I took up the challenge to do this effort, I set up a very secure source of communication via the internet. Basically, it's the same levels of security and communication that people in very secure positions in the CIA, the NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security use to keep information quiet. It's also the same system that what would be called high-profile hackers and anonymous members and the occupation group use to communicate with each other. Some direction that I can point as to the evidence of this is I don't think most people know that the web address encrypted.google.com exists. But there is a side of the internet that most people don't know exists, and is one that the government and all the agencies know exists and use quite fluidly, but with the amount of information on the internet, using encrypted communications, flipping VPNs and IPs randomly, And going through this method of communication, it's incredibly secure and takes massive amounts of advanced computing time to decrypt and decode. And this communication is always done on a basis where the time it would take to undo the encryption on this communication would be useless by the time that they could do it, which is why I know that when I'm contacted via this channel, that it's secure and it's important to act very quickly, because there's a window of opportunity that will be lost if the information gets uncoded and read by the wrong people.
Okay, so again, can you summarize what the message was?
Basically, the message was that I was given the option to put out a statement about the truth, about the mass arrests and the parties that are going to be involved, and specifically the fact that President Obama has been, even though the media and the news and the people that work in the government and the military and the private industries, the private information industry and the private military industry in particular, work against to dupe people into believing that that the president doesn't have the authority to make the changes that he does, and B, that the changes that have been made are being made at his behest, and he's been co-opted by the dark cabal,
right,
or the people that want to continue to enslave humanity and cause a major disaster and cover up their crimes. It's not going to work, and basically that he's been working on the side of true hope and true change.
Okay.
Even though it hasn't been given the appearance of that, because these powers control industry, they control media, they control the message, and they can spin it any way they want.
Okay, so in effect, to summarize, it is that President Obama enters into office. What his awareness level at that point is, we don't have an exact proof of, but that very quickly he and his advisors understand that he isn't in charge the way he would have hoped.
I think everybody would understand it this way, and this is the way that it was put to me. Certainly the president talked about some very high ideals and some very honorable things that he wanted to do when he took the oath of office. And what he figured out very quickly is that he was going to be stopped.
Okay. Okay, so when you told me this information, my first reaction was, wow, I'm open to hearing what you have to say. And yet, there's been a lot of really scary things that have transpired that would have led me to really question the validity of that information, such as the NDAA and the recent order on Friday for the National Defense.
Yep.
So when I asked you these things, that was like the first thing out of my mouth was, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And can you share kind of how you're processing this? Because your first reaction was, I thought that too, and I've been up all night thinking about this.
This was my first reaction as well. And when I asked questions, the answers that I got made sense. As far as the NDAA goes, the president initially, and even stated that publicly, was not happy about the changes with the NDAA. But it's ironic that those changes make it so that these captains of industry and these leaders of companies and
like Soros
and Henry Kissinger and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the people that own this country, quite literally own it, could be arrested just as easily as the average citizen and put in defeated camps without
access.
access to, he could, limit their communications and